Test. Test. Okay. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, but I don't know about it.
Happy Chinese New Year! Is this not the best way to start the Chinese New Year? This is the absolute best thing you could be doing right now. Welcome to the best module at the university, Research Methods, Computer Science 4037. My name is Robert Laramee. You can call me Bob. So what is this module about? Let's find out. So the aim of this module is to introduce you to research. Probably you've heard this word research used very often. But today and throughout this module, we're going to be focusing on what it is and how to conduct good research. So it's a new set of skills that you haven't probably developed yet. Did somebody have a question back there? Okay. If you do have a question, just raise your hand or interrupt, yeah? Also, this module is intended to help you with your dissertation. So most of you will have dissertations and research projects. And this module is supposed to help you with that process. For example, how to read research papers, how to conduct a literature review, how to analyze data, how to visualize data. These are all research skills that will help you with your dissertation, and they're all skills that we're going to be studying in this module. So the focus of the module is on academic research, but these skills can also be used outside the module in your jobs, in your future offices, right? They can be used for market research, for any business purpose, right? To make sure that you're not reinventing the wheel, right? If somebody asks you to solve a problem, you search for existing solutions to that problem before you reinvent the wheel, right? Statistical analysis skills can be useful to make decision-making more objective and grounded. That's true in this module, but that's true about the rest of the world too. That's not only about this module. Visual analysis skills are in very, very high demand in industry, right? For example, explainable AI. Explainable AI is a skill, and it's in very, very high demand in industry right now. And of course, project management skills are ubiquitous. They're always needed, right? You'll always be managing projects probably for the rest of your life. So those are useful skills. It's a big class. It's bigger than last year. So let's start off with a very fundamental question. What is research, right? You might have heard this term, but we're going to actually define it today. We're going to give it a black and white-ish definition. If we look up the word research in the dictionary, this is what we find. The systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. The group carries out research in geochemistry, as an example. If we look up the verb form of the word in the dictionary, it says to investigate systematically. She has spent the last 5 years researching her people's history. This is the Oxford Languages Dictionary. I like to look up the definitions of words in dictionaries. I enjoy it. It's always fun to see what the dictionary has to say. But I often find that the dictionary definitions are not as helpful as they could be. They're a little bit abstract, they're a little bit confusing, they might be a little bit wordy. So I have my own definitions that are better, obviously. So my definition of research is the gathering of evidence to support a point of view, theory, perspective, or hypothesis. This is my definition of research. The verb, to research something. And then the noun form is the evidence gathered to support a point of view, theory, perspective, or hypothesis. Those are the definitions we'll be using in this module, and they're consistent with those other dictionary definitions. They're just using different words, a little bit simpler, a little bit easier to understand. At least I think so. Okay, but in this module, we're not going to talk about research necessarily in general. We're going to talk about scientific research. Does anybody know what scientific research is? Anybody want to guess? Is anybody feeling really courageous? I guess it's very difficult to speak in front of such a large crowd of people. Any courageous people in here that want to try to tell me what scientific research is, or what they think scientific research is?
Propose the hypothesis.
Say it again?
Propose the hypothesis.
Propose a hypothesis. That's a good guess. That's a very good guess, and you're very courageous. It involves a hypothesis, yes. Anybody else want to add anything to that? This is the best way. If you want to get almost 300 people silent, this is the best way to do it. So we're going to talk about scientific research in this module. So what is scientific research? This is my definition of scientific research, by the way. The gathering of peer-reviewed evidence to support a point of view, theory, perspective, or hypothesis. That's the verb form. The noun form is the peer-reviewed evidence gathered to support a point of view, theory, perspective, or hypothesis. So it's a slight variation of the definition of research. The only difference is this one phrase. There's one phrase difference, and it's this peer-reviewed evidence. Peer-reviewed is the only difference between research and scientific research. And then we have to look up, well, what does peer-reviewed mean, right? Peer review, to read, check, and give your opinion about something that has been written by another scientist or expert working on the same subject area as you. So we can look up the peer review definition in the Cambridge Dictionary, and we get this. And this is a reasonable definition. It's easy to understand. It's well formulated, so I didn't change it, just kept it the way it is. And we're going to be talking more about this throughout the module. So what is the peer review process? Has anybody heard of the peer review process before? Anybody ever heard of that? Peer review process? Raise your hand if you've heard of that before. Okay, a few people. Most of you have not heard that, so that's a good reason to be here, because now you're learning something new, right? The peer review process is the procedure a research paper goes through in order to be published. Right, before you publish a research paper, it has to go through the peer review process. What is the peer review process? So a typical peer review process involves the following stages. An individual or group writes a research paper. The paper is submitted to a conference or journal. The paper is reviewed by 2 to 6 experts in the field. The experts judge the quality of the research conducted. So they judge the quality of the paper. And then, as a group, they vote. And a decision is made based on the written review reports to reject, revise, or accept the paper. That's the peer review process. So you write a paper, submit it, it gets judged by a panel of experts in that field, and then the panel of experts makes a decision as to whether or not it should get published. So in this module and in computer science in general, we focus on scientific research. Scientific research is the gathering of peer-reviewed evidence to support a theory, hypothesis, perspective, and so on. Does that make sense? Hopefully. If I want everybody to be silent, I will just ask more questions. And I will. I ask a lot of questions in the module. Okay, so up to this point, we talked about what is research, what is scientific research. Now we're going to talk about what is good research, right? Good quality research is characterized by the following criteria or aspects or dimensions or whatever you want to call them, qualities. Good quality research comes from multiple or a diverse set of sources. You can see how this is applicable to life beyond university, by the way. Good quality research is reproducible. In other words, if somebody reaches a conclusion or a result, that result or conclusion can be reproduced by somebody else somewhere, right? That's an important characteristic of good quality research. Good quality research is systematic, so it follows a process. That process is well documented, and the process can be repeated as many times as necessary. Right? That's what we mean by systematic. Somebody else can repeat that process. And is thorough. It does not leave out important information. Right? That's pretty obvious. Those are all the hallmarks of good quality research in general. Right? Good scientific research, if we extend this idea to scientific research like in this class, comes from multiple or a diverse set of publications, conferences, and journals. Right? So you don't support a hypothesis with just one research paper or one person's opinion. You get a collection of opinions. The peer-reviewed literature search process is documented and transparent. So how did you collect your evidence? What search process did you go through to collect your evidence? Right? This is documented and systematic. The peer-reviewed literature search process is systematic. Key terms are provided, and no important papers are left out of the research. So that is how we characterize good scientific research. And this is one of the skills that we learn in this module, is how do you conduct good research, good quality research, and how do you conduct good scientific research. This is one of the skills you develop in this module, and it's a very unusual skill. For me, it seems quite obvious because I've been doing it for a long time, but when I talk to normal people, I can see that they don't have this skill, generally speaking. And it's a special skill. When you have this skill, you're at an advantage over somebody that doesn't have this skill. Because you're more informed, you can educate yourself in ways that other people without this skill can educate themselves, or can't educate themselves, rather. It's a really good skill to have. I use it all the time, like every day, essentially. And not just for computer science, but for every subject. Every subject that I think is interesting, but usually health is the subject that I'm using this skill for. Any questions so far? Everybody excited about this module? It sounds really interesting, doesn't it? Everybody's just thinking about how they're going to party tonight for the new year. So why do we even conduct research in the first place? Is research even useful at all? Like, what's the big deal? Why do we even conduct academic research at all in the first place? So there are different reasons why we might want to conduct academic research. The first one is probably the most common. We have questions. We want to answer a question. We have a question, somebody's given us a question, and we're trying to find out what the answer to the question is. So we can use research to answer questions. Why does something work in a particular way? Do people have a particular attitude? How can we make something perform a specific task? To answer these questions about why and how things work. Why are things the way they are, and how things work? As someone mentioned before, we may have a hypothesis that we want to confirm or refute. So the first aspect is more exploratory in nature. Like if we want to answer a question, we might explore the literature for answers. The second one is more analytical in its nature, right? That's something more advanced. We have a very specific hypothesis. I believe this is true, for example. That's a hypothesis, right? I believe that my sister is stealing candy from my room. That's a specific hypothesis, true or false, right? We might have ideas. So we might have ideas that we think are new. So can we combine these questions and hypothesis? What are the properties of the structure, language, or algorithm? Let's build a system to do X. We might have an idea that we think is new, and we want to check, is it really new, or has somebody already thought of this before? So to answer that question is going to require some research. Right? We have to find out, okay, who has worked on this before? Is what I'm thinking actually new? And then, of course, we may want to solve specific problems. Maybe somebody has given us a specific task or problem to solve, and we're trying to find the solution to that problem that somebody has already solved, right? Somebody's already worked on it, they've already solved it. How can we solve this particular technological economic problem? How can we improve this algorithm so that it's more accurate or faster or more objective? The bottom line is that academic research is driven by a desire to expand knowledge. Right? We have you can imagine an existing set of knowledge that we have, and we're trying to grow that amount. We want to expand existing knowledge. That's the fundamental reason why we conduct research. What kinds of research do we have? What kind of options? I sort of mentioned this in the previous slide. We have exploratory research. So exploratory research is when you don't have a very clear hypothesis. You have a fuzzy, vague idea in your head, and you want to educate yourself more about a given topic or idea. So exploratory research involves addressing a new problem about which little is known. The research idea cannot be formulated very well at the beginning. Like, you just have a vague, fuzzy idea in your head. For example, you might be thinking, I wonder if anybody has ever worked on this problem of trying to optimize the elevator algorithm, right? Elevators follow an algorithm, and you want to find out what people have done to solve this problem already. So you explore. The hypothesis-based research is more advanced, right? We can test an existing theory or idea to be true or false. Like, I believe I can get an elevator to every floor on this building within 60 seconds. That's a specific hypothesis, true or false, right? And you try to prove it to be correct or incorrect. And then problem-solving research. So we start with a given problem, like coursework 1. Right? Coursework 1 is a problem that is very specific. We start with a particular problem in the real world or the academic world and bring together all intellectual resources that can be brought to bear on its solution. I think everybody understands this. I think this is something that everybody vaguely knows and understands already, even before you came to this class. So in this module, we're going to look at some of these different kinds of research methods. They fall into different categories, different strategies, and we're going to look at each one of them. How do we conduct research? What methods do we use? We conduct qualitative methods. Qualitative, I get these words are very similar, so if I mix them up by accident, please forgive me. Qualitative methods involve things like literature reviews, interviews, text questions or natural language-based questions and answers, ethnographic methods based on observation, or anything that's associated with natural language. This is qualitative research, right? You might be conducting a survey and asking people their opinion about something. This is qualitative research based on natural language. Quantitative research is based on numeric data. So measurements, numerical questionnaires, statistical analysis, trying to compare things by measuring features, and so on. Qualitative is based on natural language. Quantitative is based on numerical data. That's the fundamental difference. We have observational methods. That is just trying to watch something and see how it behaves. We can watch people or other things and see how they behave and try to make objective assessments of that behavior or look for patterns or trends or outliers. We have experimental methods, right? I think everybody's familiar with this idea. Conducting an experiment. We try to set up an environment that's reproducible where we can obtain a specific result. Right? We can control the environment and try to vary only one aspect of the environment to study that specific variable. We can design and build software or prototypes or hardware or software and evaluate it in some way. And of course, there are mathematical methods like mathematical proofs. Right? That's another research method, is coming up with a mathematical proof or designing a mathematical proof. We call those also theory, like theoretical research. So in computer science, you might have noticed this already, right? You've been here for a semester already, I guess. So you may have noticed the topics, the list of topics that permeate the school is quite diverse. That every academic has a set of different interests and different research topics. So it could be anything. We have a diversity of topics, from mathematical proofs to analyzing NFTs in the art world, building new machine learning algorithms, to computational biology and human-computer interaction. So we have a lot of different topics that we cover in the School of Computer Science. It's quite a diverse set of topics. And because of the diversity of the people and the topics, we have a diverse set of research methods. Like every academic is going to have a slightly different variety of research methods. Everybody's going to be slightly different. Could be mathematical proofs, it could be ethnography, observing people, it could be analyzing an algorithm, and it could be building a piece of software, right, to demonstrate some idea. So we have a lot to learn in this module. Maybe not everything will be related exactly to your dissertation, but it gives you a foundation to build on. So you'll start with this foundation, and then your dissertation will be the application of all these methods to your actual topic. So sometimes we have a lot of different methods, a lot of different topics, but it is possible that you have an interest that is not, doesn't have a specialization in the school. That could happen. For example, if you have a special interest in hardware, there aren't many people in the school that study hardware. So there are some limits on the subject you can study for your dissertation, but sometimes academic supervisors will supervise topics that they're not experts on too. So it's a negotiation process, really. Any questions about dissertations or academic supervisors or anything like that?
Yeah.
Question?
So when we go ahead with a dissertation, we follow a similar structure which is based on what we learned from it, right?
So the question was, when you work on your dissertation, you'll be given a structure.
No.
Is that the question?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
What I meant, well, I have two questions.
Mhm.
When do we usually start with our dissertation?
So this question is, when do we usually start? Very soon. Actually, you usually start this week or next week, because this module will overlap with your dissertation. There's an overlap. So one of the goals we have is to get you to start as soon as possible. That's one of the goals. You had a second question?
It was mostly this was the important ones. I was just trying to frame it.
Okay, you're welcome to ask more questions. Anybody can ask questions at any time.
Yeah, I remember this.
Okay, good.
So, I believe there's 1 year masters and there's 2 years masters.
That's right.
So I'm 2 years masters. So do we also start as soon as possible, or is there a particular procedure that needs to be followed differently from the 1 year master's students?
So there are 1 and 2 year master's students, and they have slightly different procedures. The steps are the same, but the time at which you perform those steps might be different. But for this module, it will be exactly synchronized. It will be exactly the same. Any other questions?
We should also provide
So somebody asked, do we choose our supervisors or are they assigned? The answer is both. So you can choose, but you might not get your choice. So in that case, you'll be assigned. Does that make sense? Another question?
I wonder if it's published individually or in group work?
Your dissertation?
Yeah.
Your dissertation is performed on an individual basis. However, the meetings might be in groups. So when I supervise master's students, we meet as a group. They're all working on their individual topics, but we meet as a group. That makes sense. Another question?
What is the process of getting a supervisor? Like, if we have someone in mind, kind of email them, what is the sort of form that we have to fill in?
So the question is, what is the process of getting a supervisor? At some point very soon, hopefully like within the next week, fingers crossed, because I'm trying to push up that process. There will be an email, a magic email that says, okay, here's a list of supervisors and the topics that they supervise. And then you look through that list and you choose probably 2 or 3, something like, and you like order of priority. So that's one part of the process. But another part of the process is you are encouraged to actively talk to prospective supervisors and say, I'm thinking about this topic. Do you think this is a good topic to supervise, and so on. So it's a twofold strategy, actually. Yeah. So I think I would encourage you to be proactive in this process. Yes. And the sooner you start, the more likely you are to get the option you're most interested in. If that makes any sense. Yeah. Other questions? At the way at the back. You're going to have to speak up. Is there a process to work with a company? So that will be in the project list. In the project list, there'll be some projects that involve a company, and you can join those projects. If you have, do you have a specific company that you're interested in? Okay. Yes, it will be in the list. There'll be some indicators like there is a company involved in this project. Another question?
One of the documents that if I already have a company,
So if you already have a company in mind, you can approach a supervisor and say, I have a company in mind. Is it possible to synergize? And some supervisors will say yes, and some will say no. And that's it. So it's a kind of a negotiation process. I think it's good for my particular topic, data visualization. I like it when there's a company involved because every company has lots of data they want to analyze. But for some people, it might not work. It might not work. Other questions? Good questions, by the way. This is good. Good way to start off the Chinese New Year. Another question?
Yeah, sorry, in terms of the courses, so say you want to take a machine learning based project, right? Do you get access to computing resources from the university?
Do you get access to computing resources at the university? Yes. Yes.
Limitations to that, or how does that work?
There are no limits. You have infinite computing resources. Yes, there are limits. We have the lab, A32, I think it is, and we have some other equipment, but it will really depend on which topic you choose and who you work with, basically, yeah. Other questions? At the back?
Sorry, when is the list of the companies and the projects going to be released?
That is the big question. That's the big one. I hope very soon. It used to be released a little bit later, like in March, but I've tried to push it up to like this month, like beginning of February. So I hope in the beginning of February, within the next week or two, that list will be released. However, you can look at the list of staff. The list of academic staff and their topics is already on the university website. So you can already start looking, even though it's not the formal list.
What, for example, will people apply for the same project? Will you be like an on-time process for that, or?
That's right. So some projects are fine to have multiple people working on it. Some of them, and some of them might not be. That's also a negotiation process. Yeah. For the data visualization projects, it's fine to have multiple people working on the same topic. But in some cases, it might not work out. Another question? The list of academic staff? That's actually in the slides here. Right here. So that's the list of academic staff. And you can already start looking through that list. Most of those staff, not all of them, but like 90% will be supervising master's dissertations. Not all, but I would say about 90%. Other questions? Good. Keep the questions coming. We can. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about coursework 1 for the next 10 minutes. So in coursework 1, you create a 2-minute video summary of a research paper, a scientific peer-reviewed research paper. Right, so you find an interesting research paper, and it has to be written by a member of the School of Computer Science at the University of Nottingham. It can't be any research paper. One of the authors or co-authors has to be a member of this school, that list that we just saw. Right? And then you make a 2-minute video explaining that paper in a way that would be accessible to first-year students in computer science. That's the summary of coursework 1. And the next weeks, like the next lectures and the next workshops, are all going to be helping you prepare for coursework 1. Right? So this is just an introduction to coursework 1. So why would we want to perform such an exercise? Right? You might create a 2-minute video to help educate and encourage people to think about a given subject. You might want to provide something like a translation service. Research papers are difficult to read, but if you provide a 2-minute summary of them, that's not very difficult to watch. So it's almost like a translation service. To pay back the public who have funded the work through taxes, to build collaborations between different areas of research, so that ethical decisions about science are discussed and debated by a diverse set of people, and so that people understand why science and technology is important. These are all good reasons to have this skill. This is another skill, by the way. It's multiple skills combined in coursework 1. Why would we want to use video? Video is really the most popular format today. It's pretty obvious now, isn't it? Because we're always watching lots of videos now, right? They're usually on TikTok. You could post your video on TikTok. So the combination of sound and vision is engaging. Video allows you to distill complex topics. This can help you get a job. For example, if you do a very good job at your video, you can show it during a job interview. And if you do that, you will definitely get the job. Definitely. Like, you will be a very unusual job interviewee. Very, very unusual. Automatically, you will be the only person that does that ever in the history of job interviews. Visual explanations and metaphors can be a powerful way to communicate. People turn to video sources as a first resort. And viewers can repeat and focus on increased understanding. So one of the goals of the first coursework is to help you familiarize yourself with the research in the school. Right, the school is big, right? There are over 50 academic staff members. So this is going to help you start familiarizing yourself with the research that happens in the school. It will also help you familiarize yourself with the staff. So it's to help you to get familiar with the school. It's also to help you develop your skills in explaining research to an audience. And one of the skills we develop is how to read a research paper. Because reading a research paper is difficult. They're very complicated. So reading them is actually a very special skill. And that's one of the skills we develop in this module is, here's a complicated research paper. How can I actually read that? So you find a research paper written by a researcher in the School of Computer Science. You present the ideas in that paper as a 2-minute video. And in the following weeks, in the upcoming weeks, we will have lectures and workshops that develop the skills you need to succeed in coursework 1. The target audience of your video is a first-year student in computer science. You record your video, then you upload it to YouTube or Vimeo and provide a link to that video when in your submission. Right? Does that make sense? The detailed coursework 1 specification is on Moodle. It's already on Moodle. It's going to be modified a little bit, but the details are already there. How do you find a research paper? There's a repository of research papers here at this URL. That's one way to find a research paper. Another way to find a research paper is to look at the list of staff. Each member of staff will have a web page, and their web page will have their list of publications on them. That's another way to find them. So you'll need to allocate some hours of time just for this search process. The search process could take a few hours, right? Because there are so many members of staff and lots of research papers. And then you have just 2 minutes. It's actually condensing the important information down to 2 minutes is also a skill. That's another skill, to condense and distill. And that's something we're going to learn in this module as well, how to do that. And by the way, as a hint, choose a paper that's understandable. and has a clear message with some visually appealing content. Not all papers are created equal. They're all different. So sometimes students will come up to me and say, I'm thinking about summarizing this paper, and they've chosen something really, really long and complicated, like a 50-page mathematical proof or something. And it's just more difficult to summarize that in 2 minutes than some other papers. For making the video, you can use your phone or your laptop. There are lots of free editing packages available for making videos. iMovie, Camtasia, PowerPoint. And you can use your own voice, but you do not have to appear on the camera. So there's sound. The video has sound, right? Okay, so the rest of this module is about the details of the project. We're going to talk about communication, reading research papers as one of our skills, quantitative research methods as other skills, qualitative methods, how to find research relevant for your project, how to write a literature survey, project management, ethics. You can find a link to last year's lectures on YouTube. So if you want to see what's coming, you can see what's coming. Right? All of last year's lectures are on YouTube in a playlist if you want to get a preview. There will be some changes, but the basics will be similar. Okay, this is a special slide that you've never seen before. As you can see, this class is quite big. So we have a special management strategy for handling questions. Because of the class size, it's very big. So if you want to ask a question, you have 3 ways to ask a question and get an answer. You can ask a question in class, and I will answer it. You can ask a question after class, and I will answer it. And you can ask a question in the Research Methods Teams chat, and I will answer that. So we have about 30 hours or 30 opportunities for questions in class, 30 opportunities for questions after class, and then unlimited opportunities to ask questions in the chat, the Research Methods Teams chat. What I'm leaving out is email. So due to the very large volume of email I receive on a daily basis, I won't be answering your questions in an email. So if you send me an email one-on-one, I won't answer the question. It's due to the very, very large volume. I get about 100 emails every day. And if this whole class starts sending me individual emails, I will die. I will just be dead. So in order to save my life, we have this strategy. Answering questions via individual emails is very inefficient. So based on my experience, imagine you have a question. Oh, I'm going to email Bob. You send it, you're so happy, right? What I've experienced is if I answer that email, I get another one back with another question. So even if I were to answer them, it never ends. It's a loop. So as soon as I answer one, a new one comes back, and I haven't made any progress at all. Right? So that's the policy about questions. Questions sent via email are often from students who skip the lecture too. That happens a lot. Oh, I didn't get this in the lecture, therefore I'm going to send an email. Anyways, don't worry about it. If you have a question and you want to type it out, just use the MS Teams chat. so that when one student has a question, I can answer it for the whole class at the same time. If you have a question, there's a good chance that 100 other students have the same question. That's why we set up the Teams chat. There it is, the MS Teams for research methods. There's a link here. There's also a link on Moodle to the Teams chat. And there you can ask all your questions. Okay, any questions now? Another question.
When you say someone in the school of computer science, do they have to be currently in the school? Can it be someone who was previously in the school, then like left?
So the supervisor has to be currently in the school because they have. Yes.
You said written by someone in the school.
That's right, somebody currently in the school. Happy Chinese New Year. See you on Friday. Hello.
Hi. We were kind of late in the first hour, so
Okay.
is it possible, can we get the QR code and get the attendance?
I actually didn't even post the QR code.
Oh,